I remember the exact moment I realized we were in trouble, even though nothing dramatic happened. No police, no shouting, no one raised their voice. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, folding mail the way she always did. Slow, careful, like every envelope deserved respect. Then she stopped. She stared at one letter longer than the others. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't change. She just said very quietly, "I don't understand this." That was the first notice. It didn't say foreclosure. It didn't say eviction. It didn't say they were coming for her home. It used softer words, administrative words. Words that sound harmless if you don't know what they can grow into. Assessment adjustment, compliance deadline, failure to cure. At that point, my mother had lived in that house for almost 20 years. Same street, same neighbors, same routine. She kept her yard clean. She followed the rules. She paid her dues early. She was the kind of homeowner HOAs claim they want. She was also a Black woman living alone in a neighborhood where very few people looked like her. Before I go any further, I need to say this. If you've ever dealt with an HOA or you're dealing with one right now, stay with this story. And if you live under an HOA, consider subscribing, not for updates, not for entertainment, but because these stories don't usually come with warnings. This one does. What happened to my mother didn't start with foreclosure. It started with paperwork that looked harmless. At the time, I didn't think that mattered. I really didn't. I thought rules were rules. I thought paperwork meant order. I thought if you did everything right, you'd be safe. That belief didn't survive the next few months. The letter said her front fence was non-compliant. Not broken, not unsafe, just non-compliant. The height was off by a few inches, according to the board. The fence had been there for years. It was there when she bought the house. It was there when previous boards approved everything. But now, suddenly, it was a problem. The notice gave her 10 days to fix it or face daily fines. She called the HOA office, no answer. She emailed, automated reply. She went to the next board meeting. They told her she needed to submit a request in writing and wait for review. She did exactly that. While she waited, the fines started anyway. At first, they were small, $25 a day, then $50, then interest, late fees, administrative costs. Every new letter looked more serious than the last, but none of them explained why the fines were happening while her request was still under review. When she finally got a response, it was one sentence long. Decision stands, no explanation, no appeal process listed, just that. I asked her if other people had similar fences. She said yes. I walked the block myself. Same fence style, same height, some taller, some in worse shape. None of them had notices taped to their doors. I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe hers was measured differently. Maybe someone complained. Maybe it was random, but random things don't usually come with deadlines and penalties. She paid the first batch of fines because she was scared. She believed if she showed good faith, the board would work with her. That's what responsible adults do, right? You comply first, then you talk. The next notice wasn't about the fence. It was about her trash bin. Apparently, it was visible from the street for too long after pickup. The letter said she had violated community standards. Same language, same tone, same threat of daily fines. Again, I checked. Other bins were out, some overnight, some all weekend. No notices. This time, when she called, someone answered. The woman on the phone sounded annoyed, like my mother was inconveniencing her just by asking questions. She told my mother, "You need to be more mindful. We've talked about this." They had not talked about this. When my mother tried to explain that she worked late and sometimes couldn't bring the bin in immediately, the woman cut her off. "These are the rules," she said. "Everyone has to follow them." That word, everyone, stuck with me because it didn't feel like everyone, it felt like her. The fines kept stacking: fence, trash, a warning about her exterior light being too bright, another about a plant near the porch being unapproved landscaping. My mother started documenting everything: dates, times, photos, emails. She bought a folder just for HOA letters. It got thick fast. She stopped sitting on the front porch. She started checking the mailbox with dread. Every envelope felt heavier than the last. One afternoon, she told me she felt like she was being watched. I told her she was probably just stressed. I regret that. The turning point came with the sign. My mother isn't political. She doesn't argue. She doesn't post online. But after watching the news for weeks and feeling the tension in the country, she put a small sign in her front window. White background, black letters, "Life Matters," no logo, no movement name, just those two words. She said it was for herself, a reminder, something grounding. The next morning, there was a notice taped to her door: unauthorized signage, immediate removal required. She took the sign down that same day. It didn't matter. The letter that followed wasn't about the sign. It was about her account balance. By then, the fines had grown into thousands, not because of one violation, but because of accumulation, interest, late fees, processing charges, costs that compound quietly when no one explains how to stop them. She tried to request a hearing. The board said the window had passed. She asked when the window was. They sent her a copy of the bylaws with a section highlighted. The deadline had been during the same week they were reviewing her fence request. Technically, they were right. That's the part that still makes my stomach turn. Everything they did followed the rules, just not the same way those rules were applied to everyone else. At some point, my mother stopped calling me every time a letter arrived. I found out later she didn't want to worry me. She didn't want to admit she was scared. The first time she used the word scandal, it wasn't in a calm conversation. It was late at night, over the phone, her voice breaking. "I don't know what else to call this," she said. "It feels wrong." I want to be clear about that word. That wasn't a legal term. That was an emotional one. On paper, everything they did was allowed. That's what made it worse. The final notice came in a plain envelope. No bold warnings, no bright colors, just a statement informing her that her account was severely delinquent and that the association was authorized to pursue further remedies. Further remedies. When I read that line, my chest tightened. I called a lawyer the next day. He asked for the documents. I emailed him everything. A week later, he called me back. He didn't sound shocked. That scared me more than anything. He explained that HOAs in that state had broad authority, that unpaid assessments could lead to liens, that liens could lead to foreclosure, that judges often never saw these cases unless someone fought early, and fighting early cost money. Money my mother didn't have. We asked about discrimination. He paused. "Proving intent is hard," he said, "especially when the paperwork is clean." Clean. That word again. The HOA sent one more letter after that. This one was certified. Notice of intent. That's when my mother finally cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears at the kitchen table where she'd folded mail her whole life. She kept saying the same thing. I did everything right. And the worst part was, she wasn't wrong. By the time the lien was filed, the amount had doubled. Not because of new violations, but because of fees layered on fees. Every attempt to catch up made it worse. The house stopped feeling like a home. It felt like a countdown. Neighbors who used to wave stopped making eye contact. Board members passed her without speaking. No one said why. No one had to. The system was moving now, and it didn't need anyone's permission. That's where part 1 ends. Not with a door being kicked in, not with a final judgment, just with paperwork in motion, deadlines closing, and a house that suddenly felt less like property and more like a liability. At that point, we still believed there might be a way out. We were wrong. After the lien was filed, time stopped behaving the way it used to. Days blurred. Weeks disappeared. Everything started revolving around deadlines we didn't fully understand. My mother kept the house spotless, like cleanliness might protect it. She wiped counters that were already clean. She vacuumed rooms no one sat in. She kept the blinds closed more often now, not because she was hiding, but because being seen felt dangerous. The HOA letters kept coming, but now they were colder, more formal, less explanation. The tone had shifted from correction to enforcement. I started going through the bylaws myself, page after page of dense language. Words like authority, remedy, non-judicial. There were entire sections about penalties, but very little about resolution. Plenty of rules for punishment, almost none for mercy. I noticed something else too. Every notice referenced the same sections, the same clauses, always applied to my mother. When I cross-checked those clauses against the neighborhood, the violations weren't unique, the enforcement was. We asked for a payment plan. The response came 2 weeks later. Denied. No reason given. I called again. This time, the person on the phone asked for my mother's account number before she said anything else. When I asked why the payment plan was denied, she said, "That decision has already been made." I asked by whom. "The board." I asked when. She paused, then said, "It's documented." That was the end of the call. My mother started sleeping with the TV on. The silence bothered her. She said it made her think too much. Every knock on the door made her flinch. Every car slowing down outside made her look up. One afternoon, she told me she'd seen 2 men walking the block taking pictures, clipboards in their hands. They didn't stop at every house. They stopped at hers. When she stepped outside to ask what they were doing, one of them told her they were just documenting community standards. He didn't look at her when he spoke. He looked past her at the house. That night, she asked me if they could really take her home without a judge. I told her I didn't think so. I was wrong. The lawyer explained it in pieces like he didn't want to overwhelm us. HOAs didn't need a courtroom the way people think of it. Much of it happened through filings, notices, timelines. If deadlines passed without action, the process moved forward automatically. Automatically was the word that stuck. There was no single villain to confront, no moment to stop it with a speech or a demand. Just steps, quiet legal steps. My mother asked if we could sell the house to pay the fines. The lawyer hesitated. He said the lien complicated things. Buyers didn't like properties with unresolved HOA actions. Even if we sold, the association would be paid first. There was no guarantee she'd walk away with anything. She'd lose the house either way. The next board meeting was held online. My mother logged in early, camera on, sitting upright, papers laid out neatly in front of her. When it was her turn to speak, she explained everything calmly. The fence, the trash bin, the fines, the timeline. She asked why the enforcement felt different. The board members didn't interrupt her. They just didn't respond to the substance of what she said. One of them thanked her for her comments and said the board was committed to maintaining standards. Another reminded her that the meeting was not a forum for disputes. She logged off before it ended. Later that night, she told me she felt invisible. That was when I started noticing patterns she hadn't even mentioned. Other homeowners got warnings instead of fines. They got phone calls. They got reminders. Their violations were described as oversights, My mother's were described as failures. I asked a neighbor, someone we'd known for years, if they'd ever been fined. He laughed and said no. He said the board was pretty chill if you talked to them. When I asked if he'd ever missed a deadline, he shrugged. They usually give you extra time, he said. Not her. The HOA sent another notice, this one stating that legal action was imminent. It included a breakdown of the balance owed. The number looked unreal, larger than her annual income, built from small charges that had snowballed into something unmanageable. She tried to pay a part of it. The payment was returned. Partial payments not accepted at this stage, the letter said. That's when the fear turned into something heavier, hopelessness. My mother stopped opening the mail right away. She stacked it on the counter and waited until I came over. She didn't want to read it alone. One envelope contained a notice about attorney's fees. Not our attorneys, the HOA's fees we were now responsible for. Another referenced the possibility of foreclosure if the balance remained unpaid. The word was finally there. Foreclosure, not shouted, not highlighted, just stated. I asked the lawyer if discrimination mattered at this point. He said it mattered morally. He said it mattered socially. But legally, it was difficult unless we could prove intent. How do you prove intent, I asked, when everything is written down? He didn't answer right away. That silence was an answer. My mother started talking about the house in the past tense. She'd point out things she wanted me to remember, the way the light hit the living room in the morning, the sound the stairs made, where she'd hidden birthday gifts over the years. She wasn't giving up. She was preparing. The HOA sent a final pre-foreclosure notice shortly after that. Certified mail, signature required. My mother held the envelope for a long time before opening it. When she did, she read it once, then again. Then she folded it carefully and placed it back inside. She looked at me and said, "They never said why." She didn't mean the fence. She meant everything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how clean the paperwork was, how reasonable it looked to anyone who hadn't lived inside it. This wasn't chaos. It was order, and it was working exactly as designed. The foreclosure didn't happen all at once. There was no single day where everything collapsed. It happened in stages like erosion. Small losses piling up until there was nothing left to stand on. The first thing my mother lost was leverage. Once the foreclosure process began, conversations changed. The HOA stopped responding to emails entirely. Their attorney handled everything. Every question we asked came back with a reference to a clause, a deadline, a statute. Nothing personal, nothing flexible. We tried to file objections. The lawyer warned us that every filing costs money, money that would be added to the balance, money that would make things worse. It felt like paying to slow down your own drowning. My mother asked if she could attend a hearing. The lawyer explained that there might not be one. In some cases, the process moved forward without a traditional court appearance. Notices were considered sufficient. Sufficient for whom? She asked. No one answered that. The house started attracting attention, not from neighbors, from strangers. Real estate postings appeared online, not with her consent, not with her knowledge. The photos were old, pulled from previous listings. Seeing her home advertised like that broke something in her. She stopped correcting people when they asked how she was doing. She just said she was tired. The day the foreclosure sale was scheduled, the lawyer told us not to attend. "It won't help," he said. My mother attended anyway. She sat in the back of the room, quiet, invisible, just like the rest of the process. The sale lasted minutes. Her home was sold for a fraction of its value. The HOA's fees were paid. Their attorney's fees were paid. Administrative costs were covered. There was nothing left for her. Legally, everything was complete. She moved out 2 weeks later. No one from the HOA said goodbye. No one explained anything. No one acknowledged what had happened. The house was empty when we left it, clean, exactly how she'd always kept it. As we drove away, she didn't cry. She just said, they didn't have to break any rules. That sentence stays with me. People ask now if we're going to fight it, if we're going to expose them, if we're going to take it to court. They want a satisfying ending. I don't have one. We consulted more lawyers. We heard the same thing in different words. The enforcement was harsh, but legal, unequal, but difficult to prove, devastating, but permitted. There was no moment where someone could step in and reverse it. That's the part people don't like to hear. Nothing about what happened to my mother was illegal. That doesn't mean it was fair. It means the system doesn't measure fairness the way people think it does. My mother lives with me now. She keeps her things in boxes. She says she doesn't want to unpack too much. She doesn't trust permanence anymore. Sometimes she asks if she did something wrong. I tell her no. But the truth is more complicated than that. She followed the rules as they were written. She just wasn't protected by them the way others were. The HOA still exists, the board still meets, the rules are still enforced, the system remains intact. And that's why I'm telling this story. Not because it's shocking, not because it's dramatic, but because it's ordinary, because it's quiet, because it could happen again to someone else, and next time it might happen faster. If you've ever dealt with an HOA or you're dealing with one right now, share your story in the comments. Not to argue, not to vent, but so people understand how quietly this can happen. Read the comments. That's where the pattern shows up.